Hello, everybody, and welcome. My name is Fidencio Saldaña, and I am the Dean for Students at Harvard Medical School. It is my pleasure to host this week's Voices from the Community. This week, we have the pleasure of having three of our graduating Harvard Medical students here to share some of their stories with us. And I'd like to go ahead and have them introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gavin Ovsak. I'm from Minnesota. I'm a graduating HMS student in my 5th year in the MD MBA program.
Hi everyone, I'm Parisa Fallah, also a graduating student, and I'm from El Paso, Texas.
Hi everyone, I'm Tiffany Miners. I'm also a graduating student and I'm from Brooklyn, New York.
Very good. So we have folks from all over the country. So as the whole world knows, we've been in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. So we wanted to hear a little bit about what all of you have been up to during the pandemic. So maybe Gavin, we'll start with you.
Happy to share about what's been going on during this time. It's been actually quite busy, even though we're not seeing people in person anymore. First off, I've been in business school as well as medical school, so classes for business school in the spring have been wrapping up, which was transitioned really nicely to Zoom for all of my classes, even my negotiations class where we had a lot of simulated negotiations. That was fun over Zoom. And then Parisa and I, when this coronavirus started, we were engaged and planning to get married around this time. And then everything changed. And so we decided to still have our wedding, but have it over Zoom. And we were actually inspired by Match Day, which was done over Zoom. And so we reached out to HMS's IT department to ask how they made it run so smoothly. And they helped us to run our wedding over Zoom, and we had people join from all around the world. It was just us in person, as well as 3 friends who were actually living with us. But it was really nice. And so we have a great recording of the whole ceremony. And so that was a big thing that we did. As well as that, I've been tutoring some first-year pathway students going through preclinical curriculum. I made a website or 2 on the side, which is kind of a hobby of mine, doing a little bit of research, and we made a puzzle. That was fun.
That is fantastic, Gavin. I was one of those lucky folks that was on that Zoom, and I will attest that was truly incredible. And Parisa, I'm going to go over to you because you're smiling just as big as you were on your wedding day. So what was that like?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I definitely say that's the highlight of all the things that have been going on right now. Our actual wedding day just passed this weekend. It's supposed to be on May 16th. And we're really grateful that we have that memory to look back on, and that it ended up being a very joyful day. Really grateful to the community that we have around us who made it so special. And yeah, the business school actually saw the article that was written about us and even hosted a private dinner for us like the night before our real wedding was supposed to be. So we're feeling really grateful to have all of these happy things to look back on during this pandemic. But we are also now like preparing to move and learning what it's like to be an adult and realizing how much time and energy it takes to be an adult and transitioning from student life. So that's been a lot of fun to do with a partner. But yeah, otherwise, Gavin and I have really enjoyed kind of mentoring some of the younger students who are really affected by the time. I mean, I'm sad that we didn't get our trips to Europe and all those fun things, but I do think that the younger generation is really, really struggling with all the changes that they're having to deal with. So it's been really special to kind of give back in that way. And then of course, making puzzles, painting by numbers, and trying to kind of relax, also knowing what we're about to start. So it's been a really interesting time for sure.
That's great. Thanks for sharing, Parisa. So Tiffany, not everybody gets married during the pandemic. What were you up to during this time?
Well, I did get to watch their wedding, and again, it was beautiful. But I've been doing a couple things. I've been volunteering virtually with my church still. So we've been having virtual services and needing a lot of work to go into that. And that's been really fun, getting to like show my artistic side and sing a lot, which has been really nice. And also been relaxing with my husband, getting to spend a lot of good quality time with him. And we have actually invited a couple of our single friends who live alone or whose roommates have moved away to stay with us for a little while, because we have an extra bedroom and we didn't want them to have to be alone. So it's been nice to get to like know them better and hang out with them a lot too. So.
Great. That sounds great, Tiffany. Now, I've been surprised by some of the things that all of you have said, specifically how involved our students have been. You're talking about volunteering virtually through the church and tutoring and continuing to program. And I'm just curious, what have you found surprising during this time? Maybe Parisa, we'll start with you.
I think I've just been really, I don't want to use the word impressed, but just like in awe of the impact that this has had on the entire world. Because I think this is the first time in our lifetimes that we've seen something that's affected kind of everybody across the board, albeit in some very different ways. And I think it's been really helpful and important that this has exposed a lot of the disparities that exist in the world right now, whether it's wealth or healthcare, resources. And I think it's actually giving all of us an opportunity to pause and reflect on how we can learn to take a unified approach to a lot of these issues that are affecting the world. And I think personally, I think this is a really unique situation where individuals are being called to make sacrifices to their own well-being. And that can take a lot of different forms, and to reassess on a daily basis, like how each of our actions affect the people around us. So for example, like I'm just dying to see my parents right now. And it's really easy to say, oh, I could buy a plane ticket for under $200 to go all the way to Texas. But how is that going to affect my parents? How is it going to affect other people on the plane? How is it going to affect me when I come back for residency? And I think it's just realizing that even for us who recognize the severity of how the situation is unfolding, it's still really hard to make those decisions on a daily basis. And I think it's really important for all of us to realize that we're part of a human family, that our personal well-being is tied to that of others, and that this is really an opportunity for us to come together as a global community. And I think it's been really special to be able to reflect on all of that during this time. And I'm hopeful about the outcome of the situation, but also still on the inside, like really wishing I could like go see my family.
No, absolutely. I think it's definitely had a tremendous impact. And Tiffany, I saw you nodding along there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think similarly to Parisa, that what I've recognized is how important community is, and how important it is to have people who are supporting others, who are taking each other's well-being into account, but also just been in awe of how people have demonstrated that they want to help out with their communities. I've seen people take people in, people bring groceries when they have a car. We had, when all of the students were moving out, our church actually made a spreadsheet of all the people who volunteered to like move people and host people and store things for people. And there were like 300 people on the list. And it was just amazing to be able to see the ways that the community is stepping up for people, and the ways that we have noticed that, like Parisa said, people are affected by this in different ways. And this has really shown us that, and shown us a lot of racial disparities and things like that that definitely need to be fixed. But I think I've been like surprised and really excited about the way that our community has stepped up.
It really has been wonderful to see folks really take care of one another, even down to seeing some of those signs when you go into work that say, heroes wear scrubs. Folks are really contributing in a variety of ways. Gavin, anything that you've learned or maybe that surprised you about this time?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've been really happy to see is, like Parisa and Tiffany said, how it's really bringing the world together. I feel like I've interacted with people outside of my state more than I ever have before. There was a really nice event that Parisa's mom organized. It was a Baha'i devotional, religious gathering over Zoom. And this was the first time we were really able to join in, even though she's in Texas. It's almost like we were not that far apart. Same with our wedding. We had people from Italy and Japan that were able to join, even though the time zone was difficult. But it's just bringing the whole world together, and distances don't seem as far anymore. I think another thing that surprised us is that Zooms, well, it's really nice to see people. They can be kind of draining after a long time, I think. It's just like being in class for a long time can be more draining than you'd expect. Being on Zooms all day, it's good to get outside, and I feel like Parisa and I really enjoyed going on some walks together. Enjoyed some fresh air, with masks, of course. But I think those two things have been big surprises and things I've found.
Yeah, a definite silver lining is being able to connect with people so easily on these technology platforms, and you definitely do gain a new appreciation for being outside after being on Zooms all day. Well, all of you are graduating, and I think all three of you are going into distinct specialties. So we'd love to hear what was the specialty of your choice, and what hospital are you joining next year? So Tiffany, why don't you start us off?
Sure. So I'm going into OBGYN, and I'll be at Beth Israel, so staying in Boston, which is very exciting. And really excited to get to see how this plays out for our residencies, and how the structure of residency is going to change, and how thoughts about like residents coming into work and or being virtual or starting telehealth visits. I think it's all very new and exciting, and so I'm really excited to start.
And Gavin, how about yourself?
I'll be starting a 4-year categorical anesthesia residency at Brigham and Women's Hospital. Very excited to get started. My first year will be mostly medicine, but then after that, the next 3 years will be very anesthesia specific. Super excited. Parisa and I couples matched, so we won't be far from each other, and we're going to be living nearby. And it'll be really interesting starting with a lot of my classmates as well. In anesthesiology, in particular, with all of these ICU medicine during COVID, there's been a lot of really interesting research there and trying to help with patient safety and physician safety. So I'm excited to get back in the hospital and see what things are like now.
Great. And Parisa, it sounds like there's not much suspense. You'll be somewhere in Boston based on Gavin's answer, right?
Yeah, so I'll be in the OB program at Brigham in Mass Gen. So excited to join the same field as Tiffany, and surprisingly not going to be living too far apart from each other either. So I'm sure we'll get chances to hopefully in the future get together and share about our experiences. But I think Gavin and I have kind of been using this time to prepare a little bit for intern year, whatever form that takes, even learning a little bit about COVID, because we're going to be potentially treating patients that are positive or for COVID, specifically in the hospital, which is going to be a very interesting experience for sure. But also just taking this time to learn about how we want to approach residency, how I want to approach that as a wife, as a daughter, as a friend too, and trying to kind of like set up good practices for what's going to be a very intense and different year for what we thought it was going to be, and kind of just leaning on the people around us. So fingers crossed that the transition goes as well as it can. And I think a lot of us are really excited to kind of start contributing in some way to what's been going on.
Absolutely. You've all worked very hard, and we're all extremely proud of all that you're accomplishing, that have accomplished, and you'll be making incredible contributions. Again, you're entering medicine in a very unique time with COVID, but the same principles still hold. There's still that patient across from you that you're going to be taking care of, and we have no doubt that they will be very lucky to have you as their clinicians. Well, that's all we have for this week, everyone. We hope that you joined this week's version of Voices in the Community. And please, everyone, stay safe and be well. Take care.